What's up, guys? It's Dave Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from LA-based industrial outfit Contracult. The band's new album, The New Torment, is out on November 4th on Hogwasche Music. Deemed a promising new up-and-comer since its debut single dropped in 2020, Contracult comes into its own at last with the new Torment. The album sees LA-based band graduate from prospect status to that of a fully realised musical force. Having parted ways with Roadrunner Records, Contracult, yes, that's right. Contracult made The New Torment on its own terms, and the results are monumental. The album is a true expression of the collective visions of its creators, founder frontman Svart, Travis Bacon, guitarist Culprit, Nick Emdy, and newest member Bex, who is Beck Hallcraft. Svart states, "While I was proud of the music we created before, I felt as though the songs we were writing always came from the lens of these outdated writing formulas, which we had to learn rather than them being something that came out of us. With The New Torment, I feel we were able to hone in on a sound more organically and not follow some rule book that doesn't even exist. With this record, we wanted more of a downward spiral thing going on. Every song has its own unique vibe and texture, while still sounding like it's all from the same band." Beyond the music, Svart speaks candidly about the inner struggles that equally fueled and threatened the making of The New Torment. "The record was written and produced during probably the most precarious time for me," he states. "I was diagnosed as bipolar during the creation of it. It's a piece of work I am forever proud of, but it almost killed me." The New Torment was engineered by Svart, mixed by Svart, and Arthur Risk.
Risky business, eh?
There we go. And Eric Emery, who has also worked with Periphery and Scale the Summit, and then mastered by Arthur Risk as well.
You know, one day we're going to end up with like a giant whiteboard behind us with all these little red strings going, and it goes back to Risk. Risk was behind it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that we seem to mention just all
Loads.
the time.
And he's in fucking 5 bands.
I know.
He's fucking out touring with Soulfly or something,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they all sound totally different as well.
No,
Like the last
not one of them sounds alike.
The last one I think was Summerlands. Summerlands was the last one.
Summerlands, which he plays in, and then
Yeah.
there was that kind of 80s inspired outfit. What's the name of that one that he did?
Yeah.
I can't remember now.
No.
We listened to it as well. It was really good. But yeah, Risk is everywhere, man.
Everywhere. So, Contracult. Now, Duncan, I think you'll probably think to yourself, I know why you picked this, Dave. I can see you right through you.
100%. Like, from about 5 seconds into this one, I was like that. Oh, Dave picked this for me.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
That's fine.
I knew, but obviously yourself, Kyle, who's usually here, is also usually a big fan of
Kyle, or as I like to call him, Liability. That's his name. If he was in Contracult, his name would be Liability. In brackets, Kyle Sevenoaks.
Called in sick, so Kyle is not with us this evening. But he is also a fan of the industrial and electronic music. I like to dabble. But the press release there was a lot of keywords in the press release. So I was like, okay, this seems like something that Duncan and Kyle would usually listen to. So had you heard of Contracult before?
No, so I'm now confused by their. See, I don't read the blurb, so I'm even more confused by everything you just said there. They have put out something before, or this is their debut album?
I think there's something out already. I think they put out something
and that
before.
was on Roadrunner.
Yes, they definitely put out another one before. Yeah.
Right. So they were on Roadrunner. They fucking cut ties with. Fuck you, Roadrunner. A smart move, Contracult. Fuck you, unless Roadrunner's going to send us more albums to review, then please send them in. But fuck you, Roadrunner. We're going off to
Hogwash.
I want to say Hogwarts, right? It's the fucking right Hogwash.
Hogwash.
So
Tell
yeah,
me.
like
What do you think? What do you think?
Right, Contracult are. I'm glad that you mentioned the downward spiral. Like Contracult are like what would happen if 9 Inch Nails, Atari Teenage Riot, Celldweller, and Korn were put in a NutriBullet and blended into a smoothie.
Yeah.
That is to say, 4 groups that I love, 4 unique flavours that guess what? When they're mixed together, taste even better. I thought this was brilliant, right? I thought this was really, really, really good. It's not giving me anything I haven't heard before, right? So as in kind of industrial metal albums go with that kind of edge of kind of dark pop on top of it. It's ticking a lot of boxes, and they're really good at it. They're really good at it. The thing that this album has that allows it to rise above a lot of other music that's in a similar vein is the variety on the album. And I'm glad that they referenced the Downward Spiral there, because this does follow a kind of downward spirally sort of kind of format. The thing that made that album so unique to people was you could trace completely different sounds all the way right through it, and it told a story. In the case of this one, yes, it's linked together with that production and that sound, but this band will go from really fucking heavy, like really, really heavy, and like probably some of the heavier industrial metal music I've heard in a while. They'll go from that and then switch it into disco beats and pop, like track 5, Infirmary, for example, which may be my favourite track from the album. I loved it. Has this really kind of dark, like big, thick industrial bass, which is all the way through this. The bass sounds fucking amazing. But this big, thick industrial bass, and you get a view of this kind of dark, kind of industrial, kind of seedy sound, and then this bright fucking chorus, which got these big, almost kind of Korn-esque sort of big stop, big fucking stomping beat thing. Huge riffs, massive melody over the top of it. The kind of combined vocal stylings of the frontman, and I would assume Beck's doing the female backing vocals, are excellent. The harmonies work really, really well. She's not overused on the album, which I think is a smart move, because I think it, like, when she did come in with her backing vocals, it did add a layer of, oh, this is different now.
Yeah.
I think what they also have is a really good grasp of production. So industrial music, once again, without trying to school people out there on industrial music, can sometimes suffer from, this is our sounds, and that's all. Like, we have 3 keyboard sounds, and that is all you're going to hear in this album, and only one drum machine with 1 patch. Or the other way, where you almost fall into the Celldweller side of things, where like that, I have 1 million sounds on this synth, 75 different drum sounds, you're going to hear them all on this album. It's never like that. The surprisingly go very practical with it. Like, the drum sounds do change, not all the time, but they change where it makes sense to have a different introduction or a different close, or maybe use it in an interlude. And the synth sounds as well are used smartly as well. They're all variances of the same thing, and then at times they'll go very discordant. The guitar work is excellent on it. Really, really like that. It's nice, thick. There's elements of thrash that come out of nowhere, like on tracks like The Glutton, which has this great snarly sort of chorus, like about being force-fed, things that are decadent. So I love that as well. Also love the fact that they feel personal lyrics, like all these things, like in context now of the story of the frontman being bipolar. A track like Drown has more weight to me lyrically. At the time I just thought, that's kind of, those lyrics are really quite smart, and now I'm thinking actually they're now more emotionally charged for me. Music is one of the best outlets to get that shit out, and they've clearly targeted it in the right way. This album fucking flows easy, like really, really easy listen. It's under 35 minutes. I don't think they ever really get repetitive, although tracks do feel like they're swimming in the same pool as other ones. But never at any point am I like, oh, you know, that kind of sounds like track 3. We're just kind of going back to that now. They mix it up enough. If I had one criticism about it, is they're not really doing anything I haven't heard before, which is to say that could be a negative, but also a positive. They are delivering something that's tried and tested and works, without trying to. I mentioned 4 bands there. They sound like those 4 bands, but they don't sound like they're ripping off those 4 bands. Like, even when you get to listen to a track like MSK, which has essentially the kind of industrial piston like drum opening of a track like Reptile by 9 Inch Nails on the album, Downward Spiral. You know, like, it has that opening, but then the track very quickly veers away from that. So it's clear they're taking elements and certainly the best of the industrial. Just to call them an industrial metal band, I think might make people think they're a bit colder than they are. There are elements of warmth in here where they lean into those pop aesthetics, and that's the exciting bit. It's very catchy when it needs to be. I love the backing vocals. It's produced very well, it's written very well, and they don't over egg any of the tracks, and it flows and it's short. So I like it. To me, it was one of those listening experiences where, like, I could name another 5 bands that you could happily listen to in and around and it would sound fine. You know, like kind of in this one, kind of in that one. But, like, those were the 4 that sprung to mind in the best possible way. And none of those 4 bands actually sound very much like at all. And I think that's to their credit that Contracult managed to plug in lots of different styles, lots of different sounds. And they're another band that I think would be diverse. They're very much an LA sounding band. That's another thing I've got to stress. They'd sound like LA. But you could plug these guys into many different styles of tours and they would fit great. These guys could comfortably open for, like, more kind of heavier, less kind of synthetic sounding bands, but at the same time, you know, something that's even more like an orgy or something like that, you know, like the band Orgy. No, it hasn't, just an orgy in the background watching folk shag. You know, Contracult could, like, open for a band like that who are far more on the commercial side of things. They've got a really good mix. So yeah, I thought the new Torment is, to me, this was their first album. So I've not heard them before. Initial first listen, I think they've got a really interesting sound, and I'm in. As they say in Starship Troopers, I would like to know more.
Nice. Excellent.
What about yourself, Dave? Like, self-professed industrial lover, Dave. What did you make of the new Torment by Contracult?
As I said, I dabble in industrial. Don't always love it.
No, you like none of the bands that you should like for anyone that's dabbling. All the bands that are dabble bands, you don't like them, which is weird.
Yeah. I mean, I found myself coming round to more of it recently, with the likes of, like, Author and Punisher and even the Zeromancer album. I quite like that as well. Yeah. So I'm definitely getting more into it than I used to be.
These guys could open for Author and Punisher, by the way. That'd be fucking wicked. Oh,
that'd be nice. Yeah. I didn't know kind of anything about this, like, going in listening wise. I hadn't listened to that previous album when I listened to this. So I read the press release, obviously, and, you know, as this is the type of album that could go kind of either way for me, depending on the balance of things. But I'm glad to report that the balance of this one was more to my liking than it was not.
Firstly, is that because it's a bit heavier? Because I was wondering about this. There's a couple of moments in this that actually are, like, heavy for industrial, like, really, like, on the point where I was like, this is kind of, it's almost moving out with that genre altogether. And I was curious if that would be something that would hook you in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we're both big lovers of the new metal era, and there's a lot of references to that in this, so it could be something to do with that as well. I totally agree with what you said about the flow. I think there's a really good flow to this album. I think they got the ordering of the tracks perfect. The way they kind of transition a lot of the tracks, it keeps the momentum of the album going. The way tracks like Welcome To bleeds into the title track, for example, felt very natural, but it didn't feel like one long song. You could tell they'd moved on to a new track, so there was no awkward switch or anything like that. I also really liked the way they used the 2 vocal styles as well, between Svart and Bex. I think there's a really cool balance in the first kind of main track. And I thought, even though that track wasn't like the catchiest or even the strongest track to lead with on the album, I really liked what they did with the 2 vocal styles. I thought they complemented each other very well. But even though it didn't have the biggest maybe hooks of the album, I thought it breaks you into their sound very well. It's not like too abrupt or overpowering that it would put you off listening to the rest of the album. It kind of gently just kind of pulls you in with enough of their blend of that kind of industrial meets new metal kind of eerie guitar work. I didn't think it was until probably track 3, which was Drown, where the album felt like it fully kind of kicked into gear. And this is where all the kind of elements kind of started to feel like they were really working for me. Those kind of new metal type riffs felt bigger. The vocals had stronger hooks. And the electronics were really well kind of distributed throughout the track, and it was memorable as well. It's a track that once the album finished, I wanted to kind of go back and listen to it again. And I thought the Glutton, it fell into that same kind of category. It's got a really cool, almost like there was this like kind of new era Code Orange type kind of aggression to it.
I class that as kind of it's the Atari Teenage Riot sort of thing. There's a lot of bands that I don't even know if Code Orange have ever listened to Atari Teenage Riot, but a lot of that glitch stuff they were doing like 25 years ago, right? And it's become very fashionable and very, very cool, and I fucking love it when it appears in bands, because it just makes me remember being 16, so which was a long time ago, Dave.
Yes. I thought I thought the chorus was brilliant as well. The kind of higher register that Svart moves into, I thought that really worked. It gave the chorus a real boost. I thought that the track could have been longer, like it was only 2 minutes 20, something like that.
Short as fuck, yeah.
So I felt like there was more to give, but most of the tracks on the album are between 2 and 4 minutes, so a lot of them don't really kind of outstay their welcome. I think Infirmary was really cool. I thought the way it kind of delivered the big hooks in the vocals, almost a kind of Korn type feel in the chorus, but it's got this like industrial groove behind it that makes it just sound huge. But I actually liked the way they kind of merged a lot of the, almost like they merged kind of organic and technology, and that really came through on Geography of Loss, where they incorporate, there's some real drums on there. And there's a more, the guitar tone feels more kind of organic as well, you know, with the industrial and the electronic elements. I like the kind of style of the riffs on that track. They switch it up a bit. Kind of reminded me of like an old like Tari B, like kind of Manhole kind of era guitars. Great kind of mix of vocals again on the chorus. Another just really catchy track. It finishes off with a kind of groovy, like Static X meets kind of Nothing Faced kind of type riff, which I thought was really cool as well. Yeah,
it reminded me a little bit of Professional Murder Music. I don't know if you remember them. Yeah. Once again, another, I think they were an LA band as well. So,
but yeah, I thought it was cool the way they don't forget their industrial roots. Like even as the album starts to become more kind of riff heavy, they drop in a track like MSK, which just leans right into that more mechanical, cold, industrial side of their sound. There was a mention of Ghostemane in the press release, and I thought that was the track that I could kind of hear that influence start to kind of come through. Not my style personally, but I can see the reasoning for the track, and it gives another kind of side to the band. I did think that the last part of the album did start to lose me a little bit from kind of MSK onwards. The Viral Generation had some cool moments from Beck, some cool drum loops, but I felt the track was maybe a little bit forgettable. And Trauma Garden as a closer, it's like stylistically it sounds more like an outro, all kind of dark and moody, but I don't know, it was a little bit underwhelming for me at the last track. That aside, I did really enjoy a kind of big chunk of this album. I think it has some real kind of standout tracks. There's a really good mix of instrumentation, and the flow is fantastic. There's some stuff that I think well performed, but maybe is not quite as memorable as the rest. As I say, it started to kind of weaken a little bit towards the end for me. But once I listened to this, I did go and listen to the one they'd released before. I think it's a Cult of Opposition, I think it's called. It was from 2020. And I think this album is better. I think that last album felt a little bit more kind of irregular in style, a little bit more on the nose with the influences. I feel there's more personality comes through on this one, which I liked. And I would 100% like to see these guys live. I think that would be really fun, actually, to see these guys live. So, Contracult and the new Torment. What are you thinking rating-wise for this one?
So like I say, it's catchy, fits the bill, fits a lot of those influences I like. It's maybe not necessarily bringing anything that I haven't heard done in the genre, but what they do really, really well. And it's an album which, like Dave says, there's enough hooks in here that make you want to go back and listen to it. I'm going to give this one a 3.5. I genuinely think these guys have got a ton of ideas. and they're so young as well. This is like a young band
Yeah.
that, you know, second album within 2 years. It'd be interesting to see once they get, because I'm assuming that 2020, if that first album came out, how much gigging will they have done?
Not much.
As well with COVID and all the rest. So I'd be curious to hear what they sound like once they've, you know, been out, got a tour behind them, and see what that brings them. But yeah, they're definitely, once again, I say this a lot, but they're on my radar. And I will listen to this one again. So 3.5 out of 5.
Nice. I will completely agree with that. 3.5 for me as well. Yeah, I enjoyed this more than I expected. I think the only kind of downside was towards the end. It started to kind of, it just didn't kind of grab me as much. But I think out with that, yeah, there's a lot of good hooks, a lot of cool instrumentation. There's a lot of cool references to the old new metal days as well, which I loved. So yeah, I would definitely check this out if you've got any interest in industrial, electronic. Even if you like a bit of new metal, then definitely give this one a spin. The new Torment comes out on the 4th of November on Hogwasche Music. And I'll put some links below to the band, their Facebook, their Bandcamp, so you can check out the album, the pre-order, and you can let us know what you think in the comments below. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
When professions burn, do they make us sound? When the strong